Welcome, everybody, to this evening's webinar, Business as a Force for Good, Marketing Best Practices for B Corp and Other Social Enterprises. Our two speakers this evening are Randy S. Spina and Julia Gambell. Randy is the founder of Marketing on a Mission, a mission-driven marketing consultancy focusing on working with benefit corporations, B Corps, nonprofits, and mission-driven social enterprises to harness the power of marketing to advance their missions forward. Randy is also the author of a small business marketing handbook and an award-winning adjunct professor of marketing and communications, and is on the board of an arts nonprofit serving as their marketing director. Our entrepreneur in residence, Julia Gambell, with agents of branding partner Mason Rabinowitz, helps small businesses and nonprofits develop their brand and communications. Since 2010, she has co-facilitated Digital Media Sync, a weekly free learning networking event for small businesses, entrepreneurs, and nonprofits. In the past year, Julia has live streamed and archived over 60 episodes of Known Live and is currently a knownpreneur, team leader, and instructor. Through the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven, Julia developed and ran workshops and served as keynote speaker for the 2019 Great Give Kickoff. She continues to serve as an expert instructor for TED TechXL Stanford at the Ferguson Library. Julia is excited to be able to share her expertise with the New Haven Free Public Library as the 2021 through 2022 entrepreneur in residence. I will now give you Randy. Thank you.
Okay, so hi everyone. It's great to be back for this third installment. Tonight I am going to focus on the marketing component. And so if anybody's watching this that missed either of the first two, so the first was, just an introduction to the B Corp movement. And then the second one 2 weeks ago was how to become a B Corp. And those bit.ly links will take you to the New Haven Free Public Library's YouTube channel where you can see both of those. And then of course tonight is the third one. So we're going to talk about marketing best practices. So I always like to start my marketing presentations with a little talk about marketing mindset, because for the 13 years that I owned my other agency, and not so much with this one now, Marketing on a Mission, but with the first one, it always seemed like marketing was like, oh boy, we have to hurry up and do something, as opposed to the process and the mindset being threaded through the organization on a daily basis. So for example, I had a retail client who would freak out, in mid-November every year because it was a retail store and getting ready for the holiday season. It was a family business that had been around for 50 years, like Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and Christmas happen on the same days every year. Yet it was always a scramble. Every year it was a scramble. It was crazy. So having a marketing mindset means that you don't behave that way, right? It's like you're putting workflow processes in place to keep marketing, at the forefront of everything that you do, because marketing is the only business function that brings money through the door. And more so marketing in all of its pieces, whether it be sales, whether it be social, whether it be, events like this, marketing is basically the gas that that fuels your business forward. And it can't be a scramble all the time, right? So having processes and keeping it top of mind. So that's what I consider a marketing mindset. And then cultivating that, right? So here's a great Buddhist saying that I love, what has long been neglected cannot be restored immediately. So marketing is wonderful and it does a lot of great things, but it is not magic, fairy, pixie dust. I cannot come in, on December 1st and have a whole campaign for you and have everything in place that it takes to get you ready for the holiday season. It's just impossible. It is, marketing is wonderful and it can be magical when it's done right, but it isn't, just pixie dust that you just throw out there and all of a sudden things turn around. So it has to be something. Marketing, I read this not too long ago in the B Corp handbook. Marketing is hygiene. So it isn't like you brush your teeth once and then you never do it again. Okay, it's hygiene. It's daily hygiene. It's things that need to be kept up. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to go through some marketing mindset tips. And whether or not you are a B Corp or a social enterprise of any kind, these are all the things that you should be doing. And then I'm going to show you how to adapt them. So the first thing is you always want to be collecting emails. Customer database is the biggest asset that any business can have. When you own your customer list, then they are tethered to you and not to your competitors. And it gives you an opportunity to be able to speak to them and tell your B Corp story or tell your social mission story, right? It is a way for you to stay in contact with people and not have to chase them. The other marketing mindset is, call your business phone as if you were a customer. Always be putting yourself in the position of being your own customer. Use your own website. Do the forms work? I have had so many disasters because people hadn't been on their own website in months, didn't even know it was down, didn't know that the forms weren't working, didn't know that people were trying to get in touch with them. Okay. If you're in a goods business, like selling product, send yourself a package, open it fresh, new, as if you were your own customer. Should there be anything else in there? Is it the best representation of you that can possibly be when a package, especially a first-time package, arrives in someone's hands? Okay. I got a package today from Chewy's, and I always love opening Chewy boxes because there's always something fun in there, and they're smart enough to know that it's, I have a cat, not a dog, and everything is custom, and they do such a good job of doing this kinds of stuff and putting, a postcard in there and calling, her by her name, not to me, the postcard is to her. It's just so cute the way that they do that, right? So send yourself a package. Is there something in there that can be done better or differently, right? Keep business cards everywhere. In the glove compartment of your car, in every briefcase, ladies, in your purses, every time you go to an event. You'd be surprised at the mileage that you can get out of business cards, even in the digital world that we live in today. The other thing is I have checklists for everything. When I'm normally, if I were on site, right, if we weren't in COVID right now and I were on site, I have a whole list of things that I know that I need to pack for every presentation that I do. Creating checklists, over time, you're going to refine them and you have a project. It's like, okay, these are the steps that I need to take. Do I need handouts? Do I need copies made? Do I need a videographer there with me? All of the things that are going to help you be able to make an event long lasting, right? And be able, like, beyond just that day or that evening. I've done this a lot. I've had videographers come with me to make presentations, and that's how I built my old YouTube channel. And lastly, use a marketing calendar. And here's an example of a sample marketing calendar that I got this one from HubSpot. There are a zillion different iterations of this, but having a calendar allows you to plan. So you can plan a month ahead of time. You can plan, you know, a quarter, a year ahead of time. You can fill in holidays. You know, okay, so for you know, Thanksgiving, you know, when should I start marketing? It should probably be in September. Okay, and that's when I should start getting my images together, and when I should start, you know, writing my blog posts. And you're not going to release them yet, but you're going to ramp up, and you're going to have a process in place. And this is an excellent planning tool, is having a marketing calendar. If you've never done it, you should try it. So now I'm going to go through what I call marketing categories, and they are owned, earned, and paid. And I'm going to show you each one and then go through how to use them for your social enterprise. So there's owned, earned, and paid. Owned is where you want to focus as much as possible. Earned second, and then paid is last. If you don't have to pay for marketing, that would be awesome. So we're going to focus on the things that are owned, such as Google. You own your Google listing. Again, your customer or prospect list. You own your website. You own social and all of your digital content. And then, of course, you own business cards. I mean, there's a lot of other things that you own, but these are, you know, top of mind for most people. So your owned channels are anywhere where you can control your promotion and your narrative. Okay, so your website, for example, is copyrighted with your messaging. Your customer and your prospect list are, you know, you own them. Now, I may be on your email list, and I may be on your competitor's email list too, but you get to speak to me directly. And that is such a great thing. It is, I can't say this strongly enough. I know businesses that have been around for a decade or more and have never started collecting emails. They don't have a customer list. They don't have a phone list or a mailing list or whatever it is. Such a giant oversight. Okay, you never want to do that. You want to make sure that you always are tethered to people who have reached out to you, whether they filled out the form on your website, whether they've stopped into your store, you know, didn't find anything that day. That's okay. No, sign up for our emails. You know, we'll let you know when promotions are coming. Your social and all of your digital content, you obviously don't own the platforms, but you own your content. Your content is, it's, you know, for example, a LinkedIn post, and then, you know, having that tied to your website in some way. Your website is like your home base, basically. So we're going to talk about this. So some success tips, especially for B Corps and social enterprises. Your best friend is going to be search engine optimization, because this has been studied now for a couple of years by, you know, lots of big research firms and McKinsey, and they've all issued reports, and they all agree that shoppers today, even in business to business, want to know that they're doing business with a company that does good, right? Business as a force for good. Or a nonprofit donating their money, for example. So use all of the right SEO, you know, words and phrases. So for example, sustainable pet food, sustainable clothing, like whatever it is. You know, I use one of my big SEO phrases on my website is mission-driven marketing consulting. So make sure that when you're building your website, when you're blogging, when you're doing all of this, that you're using the phrases that you know that people who are looking for this small piece of the pie so far, right? There are only about 4,700 B Corps globally right now, but it is exploding. I mean, the whole thing is exploding. You can watch the first 2 videos in this series and get all of the details. But if people are looking for you, like they're not just looking for furniture, for example, they're looking for sustainably produced furniture. Make sure that you know those phrases and that you are using them. Again, having an email newsletter that goes out on some regular basis, you know, not daily, not, you know, don't bombard people. You're going to get a lot of people opting out, but I do mine monthly, the second Wednesday of every month. And it is, again, it's scheduled, right? It's in my process. It's top of mind. I work on the content, and it is a way for you to stay in front of your customers and your prospects who want to hear from you. They signed up. I mean, they self-selected. This is a wonderful thing. This is like marketing nirvana, right? And then blogs to reinforce your story. You know, a blog should be a minimum of 300 to 350 words, and it should use the SEO phrases. So for example, I have a client who is a B Corp financial investor, and his, you know, phrases are, he's using them in his blogs. They're housed on his website, and then he shares them on LinkedIn and tags them appropriately. So know the tagging. Like, for example, we're in March right now. March is B Corp month around the world, and they created a custom hashtag, which is B, just the letter, it's behind the B, just the letter B. And so I'm following it. I've written about it on LinkedIn. If you are in this world, right? So you need to know what those tags should be so that you, again, can tell your story to the people who want to hear it. And I want to talk a little bit about, this is something I created, I don't even know, at least 10 or so years ago for my other agency. But it's a really good way to depict the marketing life cycle. So the red that surrounds everything, the big square, is acquisition. And the reason that it's red is because it's the most expensive phase and piece of marketing. It's the element of acquisition. Like every new business starts out in acquisition. And it's expensive, you know, depending upon the industry that you're in, especially if you're doing things like Google, you know, pay-per-click ads. I mean, it is hugely expensive. Then within that, the green circle is retention. This is where you start making money. That's why I made it green. So you can't retain anybody unless you've acquired them first. And so it's a subset of acquisition. In the retention phase is when, like that's, you know, your email newsletter, you're retaining them, you're talking to them, you're doing surveys, you know, you're telling them all the good that you're doing with your B Corp and what your mission is. This is how you retain them, as opposed to companies that aren't doing all of that. And then lastly, in the middle, that little piece of, looks like a little triangle, is reactivation. And reactivation is, if you've been in business for a while and you've retained people, but they've gone away for some reason, you know, reactivation gets them back. So maybe somebody moved and they can never do business with you again. But you know, if you sell online, maybe they can. So what you want to get to eventually is the retention phase. Retention, it can, you know, drive down your marketing costs. It's like a tenth of the cost to retain customers, as opposed to literally buying, right, and acquiring new ones. So kind of keep this in mind as you frame your marketing, depending upon where you are in your business cycle so far. So I want to talk about, you know, one of the big things to own is your Google listing. So this is really critical for so many reasons. The digital world that we live in now demands that every business have its own listing. And also for Google, you can get a free separate phone line. My number that I'm using for my business now is a free Google phone number, so that I can keep it separate. And reviews. Reviews are, you know, once you have your Google listing all set up, they will supply you with a link, and you can send that link out to customers and ask them, hey, would you mind giving me a public review? I do this a lot also for the Alliance. So the board that I'm on, we ask our members and people who come to art shows and, you know, put art up in shows and things like that, and participate in our writing groups and other things, to please give us a Google review. When it's public, it helps a lot, obviously, word of mouth and all of that. And then website. So unlike, quote, a regular business, a B Corp or a social enterprise has a brand story. And what is your story? Like, why, you know, what is your passion? What are you supporting? If your brand story is something, let's say like Tom's shoes, you know, buy a pair and they give away a pair, or Bomba's socks, right? That's a Shark Tank business now. You know, you buy a pair and now they've expanded actually to undergarments as well as socks. You buy a pair, they give away a pair. It is really empowering, and consumers want to know what it is that you stand for. What is your brand story? It goes so far beyond a logo and a slogan or a tagline, but it's really like the all-encompassing purpose of why you're doing this. Why are you in this business? Again, capture emails. I can't say this enough, really. On your website, if you are a B Corp, you want to have the logo on there with a link to your certification page within the B Corp, you know, ecosystem. If you're not a B Corp, because I know I'm addressing other industry, you know, other segments here. If you're a social enterprise, then maybe you're a member of, you know, some packaging, you know, sustainable packaging organization. There are plenty of them. 1% for the planet, for example, is a really big one. Have that logo on your website. So it helps, again, to tell your story. To become a B Corp, you have to have a written set of your mission statement, your vision, and your values. And these are baked in to the, you know, ecosystem of your business. So you want to have this on your website, obviously. What is your mission, your vision, and your values? Again, blogging with specific tagging. Another thing about B Corps specifically, but really all social enterprises should be thinking about this, is the concept of transparency. And I put this here because, you know, there are lots of e-commerce, sustainable clothing, sustainable shoes. There's a company called Rothy's, and they make shoes out of plastic bottles. They're now making desk furniture, like, you know, office furniture out of reclaimed plastic bottles and other rubber tires and things like that. So it's product driven. So you want to make sure that you have purchasing information, shipping information, especially, again, if you're a B Corp, because shipping is obviously has, you know, it's tethered to the climate issue. And again, I spoke about this in my first video, so you all can watch that. But these are important things to think about in the transparency vein. And I can't say this strongly enough. I was on a website the other day, and their copyright date was 2020 at the bottom. Come on, that was 2 years ago. It looks like you're not keeping up with your business. You don't have a marketing mindset. In other words, if your copyright date is, you know, years old. And it can also, if you have a WordPress website, it can also just be set to automatically update. So you don't even have to worry about it. So now that was all owned. Now I want to talk about earned. So earned media is media that is shared by others. So that's obviously has a lot to do with public relations and publicity. Earned media is also on social, with social sharing. But there's also something I call having centers of influence, which I'll go into on the next slide. But earning people's trust, in other words, a really big thing in this world is, like I said, transparency, which leads to trust. So the more that you appear trustworthy and that you are transparent and that you are doing things that are, fully open, the better. People feel like they can trust you, like they know you, like they are comfortable sharing your information with others and recommending you, right? Testimonials and referrals and all of that, and giving you great reviews. These are all examples of earned. And you can ask for referrals. You can create a formal referral program. I just signed a contract with a management consulting firm that's a referral contract. If I give them, referrals, I get XYZ. Testimonials are earned. Every time you buy something online, you always look at the reviews and the testimonials. Is it sized correctly? Is the quality good, et cetera, et cetera. So, these things play a large part. 83% of all people who make a purchase online read reviews and testimonials before making a purchase from a site for the first time. So it's really important that you get this. So these are the channels where your promotion is dependent upon others. So this is why trust is so important here and being transparent in the earned world. So some success tips for earned specifically for, this audience is communicate all the good that you do. Don't just talk about, you have, the most fashionable clothes. Talk about how you are sustainable, how maybe you're buying carbon footprints, how you are supporting 1% for the planet, how your employees are paid a fair wage, et cetera, et cetera. So, using this as an opportunity to communicate all of the good that you do is really important because that's going to get you, obviously, your fans, and it's going to get people talking about you. Join online communities in whatever space that you are in so you can all support each other. I have a very supportive community on LinkedIn, and it's been wonderful for me. And following companies that are in your space is another great way, right? So it's everybody helping each other and supporting each other, especially if you're B Corp or intending to become a B Corp. It is its very own really supportive ecosystem that is really tight with each other. It's such a small group. It's only 4,700 companies globally. And that's a really tight community, but there are many others. Okay, so find, search around, hashtags, look for these communities so that you can earn and also help others earn, right? Surveys is another one in earned. So if you want to know how you're doing or if you can do something better, using surveys to solicit feedback. And then if something is wrong and it's pointed out to you, making the appropriate changes and taking it a step further in this world and in a blog or in a post on social or on your website, talk about the changes that you've made and why. Okay, so it's a constant, it's a closed loop system that you are learning and you're getting feedback and you're learning from it, and then you are making appropriate changes to serve your community. Public relations is such a big thing in earned, and it's not as hard as people think it is. You can build your own press list. I've done this for the Alliance. I built out a press list of all of the local media around the area, and even larger, geography. So if you are a very specialized, let's say you are a furniture manufacturer, and you use sustainable wood, harvested, supplies and all of that, then you go beyond your geographic area and you're talking about a bigger industry. But it's building a list is really easy. You want to get to the editor So you want to have the editor's name and email. And you can go to Public Relations Society of America or prsa.org to learn how to write a press release. It's got to be formatted very specifically. And you want to include all your media channels. For the Alliance, every time we have an art show, I sent News 12 and it's gotten on TV. All of the local, like, Patch and all of the local community online, as well as the Connecticut Post. I've done to, we're now on the Mayor of Stratford on her blast. All our press releases have gone there as well. So you want to include all of your media channels and radio even. As a result of a press release I did, I got, we got interviewed on a local radio station just before one of our shows last year. Once you get your PR up and running, you want to have an in the news page on your website so that, again, it just looks really important and really good to have a PR in the news. And if you get interviewed, then you want to put the interview up there as well. It's just makes it look more expansive, right? And again, it's trust. Because the difference, I want to go back for a second. The difference between public relations and advertising is that if you have, if you have $100,000, you could take out a full page ad in the New York Times on a Sunday, one time. But if you write a press release and they interview you and write a story about you, that carries a lot more cachet, trust, and all of the other good stuff with it. So advertising, again, it's paid. So you want to rely on that last. Right? You want to try to build as much owned and earned as you can, and PR is such a great tool. Another earned media is what I call centers of influence, and these are people and organizations that can open doors for you. So it can be associations in the field, like, for example, there's Conscious Capitalism in Connecticut, and they have a Connecticut office or chapter, I should say. Connecting on social, and then just your own network, hey, who do you know, or can you get this out to, and can you share this with? Centers of influence are, again, they have to be able to trust you. So somebody says, sure, send me a link to your website. Let me see what you're all about. You want to make sure your website is totally up to snuff, and so that somebody feels comfortable referring you and being a center of influence. And then, so social media, is its whole own specialty, but just, some wisdom here that I think is important to share is just focus on one or two. With my other agency, I had several social media platforms. This time around, I'm only doing LinkedIn. Focus. Okay. And when you focus on that one, know those hashtags because they do differ across platforms. Tagging people, tagging organizations increases engagement up to 50%. So don't just post, but also tag where appropriate, and use your best judgment. Sometimes I'll tag, like, early on in the pandemic, I was tagging Zoom, like, just because in my LinkedIn. Of course, Zoom is never gonna say, hey, thanks, but use your best judgment. Again, you want to schedule your posts. One of the big mistakes I see still all the time is, like I participated in something last week for a nonprofit. It was like a think tank for a humanitarian nonprofit organization that was trying to do stuff, raise funds to be able to do their thing in Ukraine. And they had a section on the website called Latest News, but there hadn't been a post since November. Yeah, that's not good. So you want to make sure, this is a global nonprofit. They have staff, they could certainly have somebody responsible for doing posts once a month, at least twice a month. So again, having that marketing mindset, scheduling things. And then of course, follow, like, comment, and share content of your centers of influence so that they will, respond in kind and do the same for you. Sorry, paid. So paid is last because the last thing you want to do is spend money. You want to do everything else that you can before you start spending money. So any channel where you have to pay to be promoted, like, advertising, wherever that might be, it can be even boosting, right, on your social. So you want to maximize your owned and your earned and minimize your paid. So some paid success tips. So there is a formula, 60, 30, 10. So 60% of your success in advertising is going to be dependent on your audience or your list. Like, in other words, getting that correct the first time out of the gate. 30% is offer and content, and then 10% is visual images. So I was talking about the 60%. If you are focusing on selling to people or businesses who are supporting the sustainable movement in some way, or climate movement, or B Corp movement, nonprofit movement, whatever it might be, then a lot of this work has already been done for you. Like, it's really easy to find those people if you use the right language, if your website is SEO'd properly, if your blog posts are tagged properly, they will find you. So it's really important to know who your audience is and how to speak to them. So keep that 60% in mind for audience. It is obviously, as you can see, the biggest driver of success. And if you're going to pay, you want to make sure that you're going to have a return. So, for example, if you are in, you make yoga clothes that are made from sustainable fabrics, and then you donate a percentage of your profits, because all B Corps do that, give back financially in some way, and let's say you're supporting yoga for mentally challenged youngsters, which is a thing, actually. So then you want to say that in your advertising. You want to say every purchase supports, or a percentage of our profits go to. You want to say these things in your messaging. It's so important to not take for granted that just because you do this, that your audience is going to know that you do this. And that 60%, that audience they're going to want to support the causes, obviously, right? So again, with advertising, a couple of hints here. So reach versus frequency. I sort of analogous, look at the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl reaches 180 million eyeballs every year. But most of those companies can only afford to advertise once in that Super Bowl, because it's $7 million for a 30-second spot. So frequency is far more important. So again, a smaller audience, but speaking to them more often is much higher percentage of success than going out and spending all this money blanketing without specific targeting. Google pay-per-click is another advertising avenue. Again, if your website and all of your social and your digital footprint is really well SEO'd, then you won't have to pay for advertising. But if you want to, because you're launching a new product, for example, then again, knowing your audience and how to speak to them. If you're considering advertising on any kind of other media like radio, TV, billboards, out of home, and that kind of stuff, ask for if there's any remnant space or time available. You can, like, somebody pulls out of a contract at the last minute, a newspaper has a half page that they need to fill. You can get it for remnant space. Billboards do this a lot too. So it can be a lot less expensive. Radio does it. Digital doesn't do it. There's no such thing as remnant space on digital, but in traditional advertising world, this is, there are people who specialize only in this actually. Another thing that you might want to ask for a media kit to make sure that their audience is exactly the right audience that you want. The only way that you'll know that is if you look at their media kit. So what are their demographics, where are they located geography wise? If that is important to you, if you sell online, that might not be important to you. And then of course, measure and track everything. So if you're going to invest in advertising, make sure that you can read the results on the back end and that you are, so if you want to invest again, if this is the right thing to invest in or not. And then create a budget. I can't, say this strongly enough. Marketing is an investment. It's not an expense. Without marketing, you don't have a business. I don't care what you do. I don't care how good you are. If you don't do any marketing, nobody is ever going to know that you exist. It is the driver of revenue. So create a budget. You have a budget for everything else in your life, right? Your mortgage, your car payment, whatever that might be. So create a budget. How much is it, a percentage of your sales? For a lot of industries, they have guidelines. I remember once I had a big construction company for a client in my other agency, and I don't know, I found some information from one of the organizations that they were a member of. It said, 5%, approximately 5 to 7% should be, used for a marketing budget. So, see if you can seek that information out, or just say, I'm going to spend $50 a month if you're just starting out, whatever that might be. Even if it's just for like the hosting of your website, or, create like business cards, or, whatever it might be. Create a budget so that once you solidify it, it becomes a real thing. And it's not just haphazard. And so share some marketing wisdom, right? Those who stop marketing to save money are like those who stop a clock to save time. That's kind of silly, right? But, ask any company what they have a payroll budget, they have, or like a real estate overhead budget. They have all these other budgets. Many times they don't have a marketing budget. So it's really important that, again, the marketing mindset, that this becomes part of, right, your everyday business. And if anybody is interested in resources, this will take you right to the resource page on my website. And I'm going to stop to allow for questions. So I just want to say thank you so much. Here's how you can stay in touch with me. And I thank you all very much for giving me this platform and this time. And if there are any questions, I wanted to make sure I left time for that. Yep. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
If you have any questions, please put them in the chat.
I'm looking at the chat now just to see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then one of the things that I did as well is made sure that I had the videos from the 2 previous
beautiful.
live streams for the library as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. And of course, they're on the library's Facebook page.
Definitely.
Are there any questions?
So Julia, I know you work a little bit in this space as well. Do you have anything that you'd like to add, maybe, that I didn't address?
I think that it was pretty much very well covered. I think the one thing that I would say is oftentimes when you're dealing with the social media platforms specifically, we find that, and I've also been reading articles as well, any newfangled thing that's on the platform, use that.
Yeah.
Because the platforms are promoting. So, for example, we were just talking last week about the fact that Instagram and Facebook have been doing Reels, which is very much like TikTok, right? Instagram and Facebook want to push that new feature. The more that you use that feature, the more that you or your business or your brand is going to be featured. So that's a huge one. For sure. And the same thing goes for advertising. Anytime Google or Instagram or Pinterest, they have a new feature in their on their platform, then usually that means that you're going to be pushed up. Only because you're using their platform the way that they want you to use it. And I think the other thing too, and I think you might have mentioned it, is trying to, and this is like definitely a branding thing, and I know you and I have conversations about branding. Whereas if you have consistency across the board,
Right.
Your website, your social media platforms, when you're blogging, in your voice, the vocabulary that you're using,
Right.
it doesn't have to be exact, but very similar in the phrasing. The search engines are definitely going to pick up on that as well.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's so like having a brand and like verbiage that you use. I love the idea of creating branded hashtags, because like behind the B, for example, is one that's hot right now this month. Branded hashtags are a way for others to find you, and it becomes part of your messaging. And obviously it can't come out of the blue. I mean, if it's a new product name, that's one thing, but if it's a movement that like behind the B, then you're also tethered, right, to everyone else who is using that. Again, part of the community. The word community keeps coming up a lot here because it is, whether it's nonprofit, social enterprise, B Corp, they are all their own little communities who support each other. And so the branded hashtag thing allows you to sort of take the lead, at the top of the funnel to get discovered for something that is uniquely you and uniquely branded to you.
Yeah, that's definitely, I often say when you're utilizing hashtags to have hashtags that are within the topic, hashtags that are within the organizations, and then hashtags which are unique to you, and use all of those.
Right.
Because that's really how you're going to reach your audience.
Right. Didn't we do, we
did
a segment, right, on hashtags.
We did do a segment on that. Yeah. I have to find it. I'll find that and post that in on the the Facebook page about that.
And related to hashtags is tagging on your blog. I mean, I've had people, in the past, again, with my other agency, find me and reach out to me because they were searching for specific words, and I tag something that way. So tagging is really, it's I think of it as a subset of SEO, although a true SEO person would probably argue with that. But it's a way to brand, what it is that you are doing and what you are talking about.
Yeah, it's true. No, tagging definitely. I actually, speaking of which, when Ellen had talked about in my bio how I had over 60 live streams, I actually did go back and really looked at the tags that I was using. Just because there are so many, and if somebody wants to find something really quickly, because all of that means that you're increasing your relevancy as well.
And it all obviously helps your search engine results. And you know, there are even websites like hashtags.org and things like that where you can see what's trending, you know, whether it's positive or negative, like what's going on in the world right now. You know, COVID, you know, obviously if you tagged it something with COVID or, you know, pandemic or, you know, but if you're in that, if you're just chatting about it, that's one thing. But if you're in that industry, like if you are a plastics manufacturer, for example, and you're selling, you know, the plastic that like cashiers, right? They all still have them actually. Then you want to be found for that. So if it's relevant to what you're doing, and if it's relevant to your audience, you know, your 60% who's trying to find you, you know, that's like marketing nirvana, you know, and again, it's owned. It's not paid.
Yeah, exactly.
It's such a great, so, you know, for anybody who's thinking about, oh my God, like, how do I do all this? Like focus on owned and earned all the time, right? With your proper messaging and your proper branding, it's the least expensive way. And it's really the most powerful, I think, because you're not spending money in the hopes to find new customers, but you're actually allowing your business to be found by those who are searching for you. So it's just a lot easier that way. And SEO is not cheap by any means if you have, you know, you're working with a consultant, but there are things you can do on your own. And it's organic is much better than paid. And if you build your website correctly with all this, even though it's not necessarily inexpensive to do SEO, but there are tricks you can do it on your own. You know, in the long run.
Thing too is many of the, you know, the website platforms right now make it easy for you to at least do very basic things. You know, making sure that you have your header tags, making sure that your photos are captioned properly, you know, all those little things really add up and count for sure.
And the Yoast plugin on WordPress is free.
Yep.
And that can be very helpful.
Exactly. So we don't have any questions right now, but we are going to have these videos. We both recorded the videos and we will have them up on Facebook and YouTube as well. So we'll be keeping an eye on those as we move along. The other thing that I wanted to say too, I just wanted to reiterate, for the next few months, I will be entrepreneur in residence. So this is definitely part of the programming that I've been doing as entrepreneur in residence. Randy, I 100% appreciate the fact that you took time out of your day every Wednesday these past few weeks to explain what B corporations are and marketing to B corporations. This is definitely, you know, a very important part of the business world. It's something that people do have a lot of questions about. So this really gave like a wonderful overview over the past 3 weeks. So I would suggest that anybody who's just kind of coming across this to look up the other videos, because we'll have them tagged properly.
Of course you will.
Yeah. And we have Randy's information up here right now. So once again, thank you so much for being part of this program.
Thank you both very much. This has been a pleasure.
All right. And so with that, I think we're going to close it out for the evening.
Yes, we are. Thank you both to Julia and Randy, and this was a pleasure. Thank you both. Have a good evening, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.